Hi everyone. Let me just check if this is live. Just a second. Okay. All right. So we'll get started. So this is the topic for today is fluids in our body and also about the need for transport. Okay. And before I start, let me introduce myself. Just a second. I think there is a network issue maybe. Just a second. All right. Okay, so before I start, let me introduce myself. I'm Vani Kari, biology educator at Unacademy. I'm an engineer with bachelor's and master's degree in biotechnology and a B.Ed degree. Also a founder of a startup where I grow microgreens by vertical farming technology. Okay, so let's have a look at the fluids in our body. Yes, anybody has any idea about what all types of fluids that we have in our body? Yes, you can just make a guesses. So it can be circulating fluid or the non-circulating fluid as well. No idea what all fluids are there? Yes, of course here circulating fluids are mentioned as such. The tissue fluid is like, it is moving anyway. It is between the tissue spaces. You can find that to be there, to be present there, which enters the lymphatic vessel later on. Okay, so fluids in our body, there is blood, there is tissue fluid, and there is lymph, which we are going to discuss in detail. 1 second. So I think there is a problem. Just a second, let me just check this one. Yeah, now it's fine. Okay, so there are three principal fluids in our body. So one is blood. What exactly is blood, or what exactly does blood has? So now when we mention about the blood, so blood is basically a straw colored fluid in which you can find some cellular elements suspended in it. So that is mainly the cellular components when we mention. So it is the RBC, WBCs, and also the platelets. Okay, so these are the cellular components that you can find, and along with that there is a straw colored fluid which consists of certain minerals and certain proteins. So that is nothing but the plasma. Okay, so blood basically is the plasma and the cellular element, where the concentration of plasma is going to vary. So that is about 50 to 55%, and here it is in with respect to cellular content. So we can just give a mention a number which is basically 40 to 45%. Okay, so we'll have a look at how exactly tissue fluid formation occurs, or how exactly this lymph formation occurs with respect to the blood. Okay, I hope you all are understanding. So any doubts that you guys have, so you can ask me. Okay, so I'm anyway checking your comments. So then other than that, there is a tissue fluid which occupies the space between cells in the organs. So you can find some space where there are cells, and between those cells the space which is there, so that is mainly occupied by the tissue fluid. Hi Anjali Gupta, good evening, happy Diwali. Thank you, same to you. Okay, so occupying space between cells in the organs, and lymph when we mention, so which is contained within the lymph vessel, lymphatic organs such as spleen and the tonsils. Okay, so what celebration is going on? So I think today is holiday for you guys, right? So it is anyway holiday. Yeah, so I think 3 days, maybe 3 to 4 days continuous holiday will be there for your schools. Okay, so now you know the tissue fluid is basically how formation occurs. I'll just draw the diagram and explain it. So same way tissue fluid and the lymph, so it is anyway the same thing, okay, without much difference. Only thing is that the lymphatic system or the lymphatic vessel is having a lymph, whereas the composition is anyway going to be the same thing even with respect to tissue fluid. The thing is that the tissue fluid is present between the spaces which is there, between the cells, a tiny space that you can find. So there the tissue fluid will be there, and that's the reason the name is given as such. But with composition wise, when we consider tissue fluid or the lymph, it is mainly the same thing. So let's have a look at the picture which is given here. Anyway, this content I have taken from Selena publications. So, you know, for ICSE, Selena is what we refer. And same way, this is also taken from there itself, the diagram or the picture. So this, you know, they can ask a diagram based questions on this. So they won't ask you to draw and all. So here what is happening, there is a oxygenated blood. So let me just draw here and explain it to you first. What happens from the artery, okay, so there is a oxygenated blood supply which will be done, okay. So this artery, if we consider, that is mainly the aorta. So the artery which is there, artery divides, okay, forming the arteriole. So there is a formation of arteriole that you can find, okay. So artery formation, just a second, so I'll just erase this part because you know there is a diameter when we consider, so width of this has to be considered. So this artery is dividing further and forming the arteriole, okay. So the arteriole is further dividing and there is a formation of capillary. So now here if we consider, so let me just label this to be a arteriole, okay. So this is going to be the arteriole. So this is dividing further and there is a formation of capillary, okay. So there is a formation of capillary which is occurring, and this capillary is where very narrow diameter, so it is a narrow tube, so we can just label this to be a capillary. So now what exactly flows through this one? So it is the blood flowing through the artery or the arteriole or the capillaries, okay. So now what is going to happen? So when the capillary is there, so there is a diffusion which is possible. So let's say surrounding area, so surrounding is having the tissues. So there are tissues here, so basically the cells, okay. So between the cells, so there is a space, and this space can get filled with the tissue fluid, that is by the fluid which is leaking out of the capillaries. So now this is the tissue, okay. And here what is happening? So while the blood moves in, so let's say arteries, arterioles, the blood is transporting, so the blood gets transported over here. So it comes down and it enters each of this capillary, okay. Wherever the blood cannot reach, so there is a tissue fluid. So that means only the plasma part which is this, so that will start to leak out of the capillary. So that plasma content which is leaking out of the capillary which is there is going to cover up the space surrounding this one, okay. So here is the space, okay, and the surrounding space is mainly covered by the tissue fluid here. So now you know this intercellular space which is there, so this will be full of the fluid that is leaked out of the capillaries. All right, are you all understanding? आपकी दिवाली नहीं है क्या? It is there anyway. So we do, like, you know, morning aarti and all is done, so it is anyway done. So this time I have a class, so I'm just taking a class. So पूजा की तैयारी सब हो गया है, but evening anyway we don't have any puja as such. Morning puja and all is done. So morning puja is done, the aarti and all is done, so it is totally fine now. Yeah, so evening I have full classes today. So I have class around 6:30 and all, so that is plus class and all is there, okay. Okay, so now through the capillary there is a leakage of fluid, so that is a tissue fluid. So here what exactly does the tissue fluid consist of? So let's have a look at this. So now the fluid which is leaking here, so this is the tissue fluid. Surrounding the tissue you can find, and this tissue fluid consists of what? So this mainly consists of plasma and few WBC. So specifically lymphocytes will be there. So lymphocyte is nothing but a type of WBC. So you can find certain lymphocytes and along with that plasma will be there. So that is the tissue fluid. So now here what is going to happen? So once the diffusion of this liquid is done, so all these capillaries which are formed, so this will all join. So this is basically venule formation, you can see. So this is a venule formation. So why exactly do we call that as a venule? Because now oxygen supply is done to the tissues, okay, and whatever the tissues have formed the carbon dioxide, so that carbon dioxide is taken and there is a joining of the venule. So there is venule formation that can be seen. So this is now a venule, and this venule is going to join together and it will form the vein. Okay, so where it is going to join? Inferior vena cava of the heart. So now before that happens, so there is one more vessel here, that is a lymphatic vessel. Okay, so what about Anjali? So in your home all this tayari is done, puja tayari. So now there is this tissue fluid surrounding this. I hope this yellow color is visible through the tissue fluid. Let me just take another color for tissue fluid. I don't think that is anyway clearly visible. So now in between the space what is here, so all this space will be completely filled with the tissue fluid where the nourishment supply can be done. Okay, so the space which is here, so this will all be having a tissue fluid itself. So surrounding the tissue, since this leak fluid is there, so that we call as a tissue fluid. So let me just label this up. Okay, so now this is the tissue fluid here, all right, and as you can see, one second, let me just okay, so now below you can find there is another system, so that is a lymphatic system. So here there is a blood vessel, not a blood vessel, in fact a lymphatic vessel. So let me just take this in this column. So this is a lymphatic system or the lymphatic vessel. So this we call a lymphatic vessel, and the lymphatic vessel consists of the lymph. So now this particular tissue fluid which is there, so the remaining tissue fluid will now enter. So after all the exchange or diffusion is done, so now this tissue fluid is going to enter this part, so that is the lymphatic system. So what has happened? As the blood transportation was occurring through the capillary, so there was a loss in the concentration, like some fluid content of this blood was reduced, right? So we need to maintain the same normal concentration of the blood. So we don't want the blood to get thicker here while there is a leakage of this particular fluid occurring from the capillary. So we need to maintain that similar concentration, same concentration. So since there was a leakage of tissue fluid, so this is now going to enter the lymphatic system, and this lymphatic system, so this basically joins the blood vessel itself. So that is mainly the vein before even before it goes to the vein. Okay, and that's the reason. So you can find there is a flow of lymph occurring here from this particular part. So there is a direction of flow. So this is basically moving against the gravity. So this is the direction of flow of lymph. So in order to avoid the backflow, so there are walls here present in the lymphatic system, and these are basically the lymphatic nodes. So since there are walls present here, so it looks like at a particular area, so there is a bulged area. So this bulging you can see surrounding, so that is mainly because, so wherever these walls are there, in order to prevent the backflow, so these bulbs are there. Okay, So what will happen? So since these are there, so it will basically look like there is a node or there is something as such. So this is look like, so these are basically the lymphatic nodes itself since valves are present. So there is a flow of lymph which is going to occur through this one, and these walls which are there, so they'll prevent the backflow, and before this particular vein carries the blood to the heart, so the lymphatic vessel which is here, so this will carry the leaked out fluid to the heart so that the same regular concentration of blood will be maintained. So any doubt in this? So same diagram they have given but in a different manner. So that is here you can see they have given the blood capillary. So surrounding tissue there is a tissue fluid which is given. So same way there is lymphatic capillary or lymphatic vessel is mentioned where there are lymph nodes or lymph organs. So where they prevent the backflow of the blood. So if the lymph is moving in this direction, so since it is moving against the gravity, so lymph is moving against the gravity, and hence so in order to prevent the backflow, so there are nodes here, so these lymphatic nodes will prevent the backflow of the lymph into the lymphatic vessel again. So in order to avoid that, there are nodes. So any doubt in this diagram? Understood? So any doubts you have, you can ask. I hope it is clear. Okay. Alright, so let me just go with the next one. So such a type of blood circulation, so whenever there is a blood circulation which is occurring in a closed manner, so that we call, so you can see the blood was not just spreading everywhere, so it was flowing in a pipe, so that is a blood vessel itself, so it is flowing in a closed manner. So such a type of blood circulation, so that we call as a closed vascular system. Okay, as against this in certain animals, so such as insects, if we consider so specifically if I have to draw and show you, so I can just show you a cockroach circulatory system. So let's say as usual the cockroach is having the head region, the thoracic region, and there is a abdominal region. Okay, so now this abdominal region is having a 13 chambered heart. Okay, so this is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13. So there is one particular vessel as such, so where the blood flow is done, and so here let's say here the tissues or organs are present. So now through this anyway supply of blood is done. So now all these tissues, so there is a supply of blood which will be done across these chambers and the blood reaches here. Okay, so it is anyway not red colored blood, so since there is no hemoglobin. Okay, so it is mainly the blood which is white in color, so hemocyan in pigmentation. So with that you can find these tissues, all the tissues which are there surrounding, so they get bathed by the blood. So this is a open circulatory system. Okay, so there is no closed manner where the blood flows, so it is a open circulatory system. But when we mention closed circulatory system, so all your tissues are not dipped in blood. Okay, so through the blood vessel only the blood supply is done, so that is a closed circulatory system. So in this case what is happening, so this complete tissue or organ whatever are there, so they are completely dipped in the blood. So after the supply of blood is done through this 13 chambered heart, so that is specifically in case of insects. And now the one that I have drawn, so this is for a cockroach. Okay, so it is a open circulatory system here. So what exactly is closed circulatory system? When the blood flows in the blood vessels, so that is a closed circulatory system. So here their blood flows from the heart to the body tissue spaces without the vessel. So there you can find non-circulating fluids also. So there are some other fluids located in particular organs. So there is a synovial fluid. Any idea where the synovial fluid is present? Any of you? Where exactly the synovial fluid is present? or the vitreous humor. So here it is already mentioned, synovial fluid filled in the cavities of the skeletal joints. So wherever you can find there is a skeletal joint, so between this, so let's say there is a bone here, okay, and there is a bone here as such. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so now this is another bone. So whenever there is a bone, so here there is a fluid. So in order to avoid the friction, so there is a cartilaginous covering is also there anyway. Okay, so with that cartilaginous covering, so there is a fluid around this, and there you can find the membrane. So this is basically the membrane. So that is a synovial membrane, and holding on to this, so there is a ligament that can be formed. Okay, so now there is a fluid which is between the two bones, and that we call as the synovial fluid, which is filled in the cavities of the skeletal joints. So now when we mention about the vitreous humor is present in the eye. Okay, so these are all non-circulating fluids. So here interstitial fluid is mentioned, which is nothing but the tissue fluid itself. Okay, so fluid collecting in the intercellular spaces of the tissues as a result of water and water soluble small substances separating from blood and passing through the capillaries. So there is a certain kind of leaking, or we can say passage through the capillary pore. Okay, so through these capillary pores, so there is a fluid that is leaking out, and what exactly that fluid consists of? So it is a water, and along with that some water soluble substance. So it is basically a plasma. So along with that you can find some lymphocytes as well. So that is WBCs. So same mineral composition as that of a plasma. So you can just call it a plasma, responsible for exchange of gases and nutrients with the cell. So what does this interstitial fluid do, or the tissue fluid do? So if there are tissues here as such, and there is an interstitial fluid presenting this spaces, okay, so now what can you see there? So basically you can find, so let me just explain it to you here. So now there is an exchange which can be done. So oxygen supply, glucose supply, amino acid supply, so fatty acid, glycerol supply. So anything that has to be supplied, or even the unwanted products. So let's say carbon dioxide has to be given, the water content is also can be given out. Okay, so all this can be done by the tissue fluid. So exchange of the material, so responsible for exchange of gases and nutrients with the cell, so that is done by the tissue fluid. So lymphatic system is there, which is basically a complex network, okay, which is having interstitial fluid itself, where I already mentioned here. So just below this you can find a lymphatic vessel. So this excess fluid only, after the exchange is done, so it is now going to enter this lymphatic vessel. Okay, so as it enters the lymphatic vessel, so you can see there is a flow of lymph back into the vena cava. So that is into the vein, so that it can enter the vena cava, that is inferior vena cava, and the purification of blood can be done. So complex network of vessels you can find it, which is collecting the interstitial fluid, and it is draining in major veins. So lymph, when we mention, so this is a fluid in lymphatic system. So you can find a certain fluid content, so that is in a lymphatic system. Here you can see the structure of lymph. Thymus, okay, so axillary lymph nodes is mentioned, so spleen is given, thoracic duct, so lymph, this is pelvic lymph nodes. So you can find the lymph nodes throughout the body, or the lymphatic system. So what exactly it is doing? It is returning the tissue fluid from these tissues back into the heart, and that's the reason the lymphatic system, when we mention, so maximum amount of time the WBC spend is not exactly in case of blood. So maximum you can find with respect to that is time spending. Okay, so that is mainly in a lymphatic system. So lymph is tissue fluid as mentioned. So as usual, it is a colorless fluid and it is having a specialized lymphocytes as well. Okay, so that is a WBC itself involved in the immune response. So functions of lymph, when we mentioned, so carry of nutrients, hormone supply can also be done, fat absorption through lacteal, so that is in the intestinal villi. So you know that the intestine, when the digestion is done, so the fat, the fatty acid and the glycerol get absorbed into the lacteal, so that is lymphatic vessel which is there in these villi. Okay, and another main function is immune response. So the about the blood, at least you know, so this is never stationary, so this keeps flowing, and in any way this is taken again from Selena. And you know the color of the blood, so it is bright red when you take this from the arteries because it is an oxygenated one, and if you are taking it from the veins, so it will be somewhat darker red. Okay, so this is just for contrasting. So what they have given, the veins in blue, the arteries and red, so this is just for your understanding, so just to contrast, or otherwise the color actual, the color what you find, the blood which is moving there, so it is not blue in color. Okay, so it is anyway dark red and bright red, so blood is always red only, so there is no blue and red color. Okay, and an average adult human, so what is the average, we can say, blood quantity which can be there, so it is up to 5 to 6 liters of blood. Okay, and which is gonna vary in case of male as well as female. So taste of this is going to be saltish. So we all have tasted our blood, so as in the case when there is a cut in the tongue or bleeding from the gum. Okay, so you might have tasted your own blood. Okay, so you know it will be somewhat having metallic taste as well, or it will be like, you know, somewhat saltish. So functions like need for transport, we there is a topic in your Selena. So need for transport, so why exactly this circulatory system is required? So that is to transport nutrients, transport the oxygen. So here when the oxygen combines with the hemoglobin, so it will form the product oxyhemoglobin. So if it is given, like, you know, in order to remove a carbon dioxide from the tissue, so there is again this hemoglobin going to form a bond with the carbon dioxide, so it will form a oxygen, sorry, not oxygen, the carbon dioxide and the hemoglobin combination, that is both of them when they bond, so the product is not carboxyhemoglobin. So lot of them will do a mistake here, which is not a carboxyhemoglobin, so it is carbaminohemoglobin when carbon dioxide combines with the hemoglobin. If it is carbon monoxide combining with hemoglobin, then in that case we call it as a carboxyhemoglobin. So product here is carbaminohemoglobin. And other than that, transport of excretory material can be done. Okay, distribution of hormone is also done, and since we are all homeothermal, like, you know, we are warm blooded animals, we are not cold blooded, so we keep our temperature the same irrespective of the surrounding. So in that case, distribution of heat is also done by the blood, and that's the reason, so we maintain the stable, or you know, so similar, like same type of body temperature always, so we do not change our body temperature with the surrounding. Okay, so protection, so clot formation, fighting. Okay, so that is engulfing a bacteria, or we can say basically formation of antigen and antibody complex which is occurring. Okay, so that is mainly the antibody secreted by the WBC, so that is another function which can be mentioned. So let's have a look at the question here. So the lymph serves to transport oxygen to the brain, transport carbon dioxide to the lung, return the WBC and RBC to lymph nodes, and return the interstitial fluid to the blood. So what exactly does it do? So it is the return the interstitial fluid to the blood. So lymph differs from blood in possessing only WBC, more RBC and WBC, more RBC, few WBC, more WBC and a few RBC. So it is only WBC along with the plasma. Okay, so there is no other cellular contents, it's only the plasma. I hope this is clear. Any of you guys have any doubts, you can ask. So if you guys are having any doubts, you can ask. Okay, I hope it is clear. Okay, all right then. Okay, so since the time is up, so I'll be ending this session. So thank you all. So subscribe to our new channel, so that is ICSE and ISC Masters, and click on this bell icon to get notified about the session. Like and share the video, and if you need this PDF, I can send it on my Telegram. So you can just search Vani Kari ICSE class 9 and 10 biology on Telegram. So you'll find it there. Okay. All right then. So see you all in the next session. Bye bye everyone. Take care. Thank you all.